we're trying to navigate.
Yeah, looks like there's not much on.
Well, Jay's online.
See you again.
How are you?
Well, wasn't that interesting the other day?
It's been an interesting ride.
Yeah.
How are you, Larry?
Good.
Yeah. I'm just hoping the ride slows for a bit.
Well, have you seen some of the stuff that's been being put out by me and others?
I saw.
Okay. That should calm things down. Yeah.
I hope it's.
Yeah.
So, are we going to swear people in? So it's just a public meeting. I'm going to recognize them, though.
Okay.
Good afternoon. It is Wednesday, July 22nd. All three commissioners. We are here in the commissioners' meeting room. Monica Reeves is doing deputy clerk duties for us this afternoon. We're having public. Well, it says on our thing, though, that it's on the agenda, it's a public hearing to receive public comment on fiscal year 2021 budget. This is public comment, and there are members of the public that are sitting in here, and they have signed up that they would like to speak to that. Also, we are WebExing this, so I see LJ Wade. Would you like, are you going to want to speak, LJ?
Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, very good. And we have a call-in user. That number starts with 208-454. Please identify yourself.
Jennifer Mercado for Tracy Lloyd.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Do you have anything to add or speak? Are you going to want to speak today?
Not today, no.
Okay, thank you. Greg Raft, you are there?
I am here, Madam Chair.
Great.
I'm just here as a listener.
Oh, just as a listener. Okay, we like that. Thank you. Let me see if I've missed anybody. Nope. So I guess we do have everybody that's in the room. So I will identify J.J. Johnson, Claudia Frent, Larry Stevenson. Okay. And the rest of you guys all belong in here with us, huh?
We're here.
Okay. Okay. So This is exactly what it is presented to be. We're receiving public comment on the fiscal year 2021 budget. I'm going to, Clerk Yamamoto, do you want to
Sure.
lay this out a little bit and take it and kind of present it that way?
Is that the camera?
Yes, it is. So if you want to come back here.
Okay. I prefer to be off camera, but,
here's
so,
the time. Let me
yeah,
show
you know, I looked at things in the past, and we have the budget hearing, and by code, there is we can receive public comment and questions. One of the issues I have with that is the budget is pretty well done. Most of the decisions have been made. We thought we'd change that up a little bit. The budget is not done. In fact, we're still receiving information. I thought it would be good to open it up to as many citizens and taxpayers as possible to have either ask some questions if they have some things they're wondering about or have some comments. And before the budget is actually done. So that's the idea, is to just get everybody, it's kind of like a town hall meeting, and your commissioners are here, clerk's here, the controller's here, and we'd like to hear what you have to say.
We received an email from Hubert Osborne, and we received one from
Ron Harriman.
Ron Harriman, yes. And so, Commissioner Dale,
Want me to find those?
would you please?
Okay.
And we'll just put it on the record.
You mind to read it?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay, this is from Ron Harriman. Commissioners, the budget appears reasonable, but the format is somewhat limited and slightly misleading. What are the components of the $9 million increase? For instance, what was the net non-exempt taxable value, and where is the new construction? I do understand that the majority of taxpayers will not understand the intricate details of the budget process, but claiming to have lowered the levy by 11% is a reflection of the total budget request and the non-exempt value based on appreciated values. Lacking the new construction totals defies an in-depth look at the true total tax request. Such a reduction could be simply the amount of market appreciation. After witnessing the cacophony involving property tax reduction, which included every taxing district into mythical beliefs that prevalent during the preparation of the two House and Senate bills, I was astounded by the lack of intelligible understanding, which also included the inability of those who are supposedly experts in this field to be able to communicate the clear identity of the tax shift that occurred. In short, the layman format of the presentation defies an in-depth review of the budget. Where is the 2020 balance sheet? At the Legislative Interim Committee on Property Tax, identified a new agency entitled Transparent Idaho, the objective full disclosure of all municipal and state activities. Hubert's was much shorter. He said, as I wish to socially distance, I am sending my comments by email. My requests are, number one, no increase in property tax portion of the budget. Number two, disclaim the foregone. I do not appreciate what I consider a lien on my home. Simple request, but I understand may be hard to implement. Thank you for allowing my input. Hubert Osborne.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Dale. We also received a list of questions. Mr. Waite, I see you have joined us by WebEx, and thank you there. You had some questions that you sent in. Do you want to address that at this time?
No, I would rather have those who are present take first choice, and then I can ask my questions later on, Commissioner.
Okay, very good. Okay, we'll go with J.J. Johnson.
Okay. Are we swearing in or doing any of that?
I think we're just having a public comment open meeting.
So following up on, I don't know who, the first email that was, you just
Ron
read.
Harriman.
Oh, Ron Harriman?
Okay.
Harriman.
Yeah.
So that's an excellent question. In fact, that's one of the questions that I have is, you're the assessor?
No.
The assessor's here?
Assessor's not here.
Okay. Well, it's one of the questions I have because the budget in brief and actually the budget that was posted online that's supposed to be, budget in brief is supposed to be a simplified version for the public, for Joe public. And the budget that's proposed, that's online, is not in a balance statement and it's not in a financial statement. So the comparables between, if you go substantially, sequentially through previous years, there's no comparables. So how anyone can compare 2020 to 2019, 18, 17, you're not comparing apples to apples. And if I'm Joe Public, if I just take your budget in brief, which I did, I just printed it out. Have you guys looked at this, by the way?
I have.
You have. Have you looked at it?
Yes, we've been having meetings with the presentation.
Okay, because Mr. Yamamoto said it's just being prepared, and I was just wondering.
It's not in its final, it's not in its final process yet.
Well, I realize it's not in its final process, but we're having a public hearing. And this is what's posted. And the first page that's posted makes absolute gibberish. Absolutely gibberish to the public. Because what it talks about.
I'm going to have to ask you, JJ, to stay by the microphones because this is a public meeting.
Okay, the first page to the public is gibberish. Because it talks about, first line is prudent financial management, not taking the allowable 3% property tax increase. Meeting growth-related demands, new and funded positions are targeted in specific areas of rapid expansion. What does that mean to Joe Public? Then it goes on and it talks about personnel and other operating budgets established on core needs. What core needs are we talking about? Employee retention decreases, training, and associated opportunity costs. Well, I know what opportunity costs are, but it's certainly not in this context. What are we talking about here? And it talks about preparing for the future, $4 million allocated for significant capital investments. Anybody got a clue? You, Larry? Public doesn't.
You have to stay at the microphone, JJ. We've got this on recording.
So then you get to the second page, and this is the one I really have a problem with. There was a nearly 52% increase in property taxes, $2 million year over year, 2019 over 2020, right? You guys saw this. Yet, and this is what's being published, there's a $10.6 million fund here. It's called allocated. And it says right here, in case revenue and expenses are not met. So you're raising property taxes on people, but you're also telling the people, if the government can't meet expenses, if you can't do your due diligence, I've also increased over 10% over what I need in a budgeting process, just in case I can't budget. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you understand this?
I hear you, yes.
Okay. So you're telling me there's a cookie jar. So you've raised everybody's taxes by $2 million. $2 million, I'm sorry. But you got $10 million here that's in excess. So if I'm Joe Public, I'm thinking, I got 5 years here where you never should have even raised my taxes. And this is on your website. Now I'm an MBA, and I've managed multi-billion-dollar operations, not million, billion-dollar operations. And I can tell you, this other expenses that you have here, what are other expenses? I wouldn't approve a budget that has other expenses, and that's all I have in here is other expenses. Because I don't know what they are. The other expenses to me are you're hiding expenses. If there's no transparency to Joe Public, I wouldn't approve it. And if I were you as a commissioner, I wouldn't sign off on it.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not done.
Yeah, we're only allowing the 3 minutes.
Anybody want to give me 3 minutes?
Does that mean I can't speak?
Because I actually get 5 minutes according to law. The other thing is, because I'm trying to save your bacon here, Ms. White, so I would actually listen to me for a minute.
Excuse me, JJ. I've granted you the courtesies of this public meeting, and we had set a 3-minute limit on, we can go
I
back.
didn't hear it.
We can come, can I finish, please, ma'am? You can come back around when these other people that are here, when we hear what everybody has to say, and then you can come back around, okay? And my bacon will still be here and you can still save it, but I want to move on in this, okay?
Excuse me, Ms. White, you're a public servant, and I'm part of the public.
I know, but you don't get to tread on me or smack me around,
I'm not
JJ.
smacking you. You're the one that's being disregarded to me.
No, I did not disregard you
Yes,
one
you
bit.
did.
I answered you.
I have one more question.
Then you ask your one more question.
Thank you very much.
You are very welcome.
If I have capital expenditures here, why aren't they line items? I have no idea what they are. None.
So we'll find the answer to your question.
And that's what the public wants.
Okay, and we'll get that for you. Thank you.
And that's what the public wants.
That's what we want.
Well, that's what we're asking, is
And we're saying those.
transparency.
We're saying those.
Oh, wait, one more question. Why in the budget are there salary increases that are automatic to department heads every year? And why aren't those transparent? That's another question. And if you can answer those, that would be good. Because 2018, 17, 16, 19, every department has salary increases. And they range very high, and they're not transparent, and they're rolled up under salary and benefits, and they're not transparent to the public, and they should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any follow-up questions or anything for JJ?
I don't have any questions. I'll just say the compensation plan is online, it is available, it's very transparent. Anybody can ask for it and they can see what the compensation plan and the steps that are there for longevity and for certifications and all of it. It's all in there. Thank you. You don't need to respond to that.
Actually, you can't find what salaries or the sheriff makes or what you make.
Yes, you can. It's all public information.
So we'll,
But if you
Thank you.
can,
that would be a.
thank you.
It is public information. It's all available.
And that question was asked earlier, and I think the answer was that a public records request had to be made to find that salary information, but we can verify that. And then, Madam Chair, because this is an open public meeting and we have an hour allocated, I want to give everyone that's here the opportunity to speak. And I don't think that the 3-minute was audible for people. So I'm still in favor of allowing people that want to come to the microphone.
Thank you.
I second the motion.
That looks like some sort of Charles here.
Okay.
We'll call who you want next.
Claudia, or I guess I don't care, but.
But we're not going to turn this meeting over.
So Larry, you have.
We should turn it.
So I want to kind of step back a little bit.
Thank you.
Let's just do that, and I want to be really respectful, and I appreciate everything that you guys do.
How about if we increase the time to 5 minutes, people? 7 and a half, 5. Okay, we'll do that.
And
I think that'd be fine.
Is that okay?
Unlimited
with
is
you,
not acceptable.
Commissioner Dunby?
I think that we have an hour allocated, so however that works out, we have 2 more people, well, only one on the phone that wants to speak. So I just would like it to be an open forum where questions are asked, and if we know the answer, fine, and if not, we're taking notes on how to get that information.
Yeah, and I would say that, you know, I'm not really opposed to that, but we are looking for positive comments on the budget, questions, and maybe where there may be questions that we can answer. We don't need sermons, and that's not part of what we're looking for here. We're looking for.
And I agree with that, but we also.
Excuse me, it's not your turn to talk. And we don't shout from the outside. We don't do that.
I've already got a list of questions.
Right.
JJ had some very good comments and some good questions, and I've got those down, and we'll get answers.
And I offer my apologies.
Okay, accepted.
Okay, so I want to kind of attack this from a homeowner's standpoint. So what I'll do is I'll kind of give you a little bit of background information, and then I'll ask my questions if that's okay.
Sure.
So before we lived in the 2 Tower subdivision, my husband and I, we lived in Westminster subdivision, and when we moved here in 2005, we purchased our home for $162,000. And now those homes are worth close to $400,000, $350,000 to $400,000. I don't know exactly. And when in 2016 we purchased the lot, we sold that home, and we built the home we're in right now. And we put a lot of sweat equity. We did all our landscaping, all our sprinklers, all our interior. We didn't do our framing. We didn't do the framing, the plumbing, things that he wasn't able to do. But we saved a lot of money. So I think I built my house between $70 to $100 a square foot.
Sure.
So that was a great thing. So since 2016, living in my home, I've seen my property value almost double. I'd say it has doubled. What it cost me to build, what it was assessed at, and what it stands in market value now. That's a great thing. Market value is great. Housing prices are going up, but it's only great if you're selling. It's not great if you're buying, and it's not great if you're living in it. So my questions, I guess, would start here. So I assume the 2021 budget is going to have some increase for property taxes. Is that correct or not correct? Are we going to increase property taxes in 2021?
That'll be determined. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
That'll be determined after everything's set, and we see the accumulated value of the entire county and that kind of stuff. We have determined that we're not going to take the 3%, so we're not going to do that.
The proposal that I would make is that our expenses cannot exceed our revenues. So whatever the revenues are, the expenses cannot exceed that.
So what I would say is, with everything being so unstable and everything that's been happening, and we're self-employed, and we own our own very small business. My husband's an employee and I'm an employee. And so it's just been very unstable times right now, right? And we haven't been granted an extension on paying our property taxes. Our property taxes are still due. You don't pay them on time, no matter your hardship, because a lien goes against your house, you're at risk, you know, it goes through a process, you're at risk of losing your house. So what I would say, we're blessed, right? I'm not going to sit here and say we're not blessed. We're blessed and we've been able to do it. But what I'm saying is that there's people that are maybe on a fixed income, like my parents. My parents aren't a fixed income. They still live in the same subdivision that I lived in, and their property taxes go up every year. Now they, because of their age, are able to apply for something, but I would not have been able to apply for some kind of a tax relief. So I think that the residents in Canyon County, we just need a relief. And it was a big deal last year. I remember the special session, the big to-do. I'm not saying I have the answers, but I think we need a relief. I think we've seen the levies go down, but our property taxes still go up. And then I'd like to know kind of what you guys' stance are on property taxes. And I know it's a hard thing because you have to make the budget, you have to collect taxes because you have to pay to run the county. So I understand that, but I want to kind of see what your stance would be on the property taxes and giving some relief to homeowners. I think relief is needed. And then, yeah, I think that's it. Those are my questions. I would just say that the community as a whole just needs some relief during this time.
And you said, what, Claudia, I want to ask you again, the value of your house
So
since 2016,
So
4 years.
4 years ago, my home is valued around $700,000, if not more.
4 years ago.
Now, 4 years ago, I would say it was valued between $350,000 to $400,000, and I'm just estimating right now. I don't have the papers in front of me. So it's doubled, and it cost me less to build it than it was valued for, and so it's that small population that does what it needs to do to get what it needs in life, that when you're raising taxes, at some point you're taxed out of your home. And it's not just our age group.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Claudia?
No, you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say as a place marker, so, you know, we're gathering information on the budget in brief, or I think that's where it's located. And Zach, you and I have talked about that document. So that's a question I had from 2015, the $34,297,000 to 2020, what the property taxes were for that this year that we're in, $54,119,000. So a breakout of where that $20 million has gone. I think that's a good question that would help answer maybe some of the questions that you have.
And I'll answer your general question. How do I feel about property taxes? I pay them. And my house is not nearly as valuable as yours, but it has gone up over the years as well. And so you see that going up. After being in this arena for 24 years, 25 years, no, property taxes are probably the least liked. Well, no, the stronger statement would be property taxes are the most hated tax. But they are a piece of the puzzle that helps us to pay for the services that everybody wants to have a safe environment in which to live and to have good roads and to have police that protect us and firefighters that come and answer and court services that keep the criminals off the streets sometimes and those kinds of things. We all recognize that we need some sort of property tax relief. The legislature is going to take that up again this year, and hopefully they'll be able to find some sort of relief mechanism that would be ongoing and permanent, not just a one-time, 1 year relief thing, which is kind of what's happening right now. So yeah, go ahead, Claudia. Yeah.
So what I think is super sad, I guess, for me, is that we've lived in Idaho for, I'd say, 15 years now. Both my youngest sons were born here. My daughters were not. And I grew up in big cities. I grew up in South Florida. I lived in California for a short time, and I lived in Georgia. And what prompted us to move to Idaho is my husband could make a good living here, a decent wage for a growing family, and we could afford to buy housing. We left those other places because housing got super expensive. And it breaks my heart when I see these young people, these young families starting out, and they no longer can afford to buy homes in Idaho. And our economy is not growing at the rate as our housing prices are. So maybe a solution, and I don't know, I don't claim to have the answers, but I'm assuming we're taxing new builds. Maybe we can offer some relief behind the scenes. Maybe if you've lived in your house for a long time, if you've been in Idaho for a long time, maybe we could come up with a solution where, yes, we're still bringing in those property taxes from new home sales or new home purchases. I know in other states, when you purchase your home, that's your tax value. They don't go up except for every couple of years, I think it is. And so there's a little bit of a relief or a freeze. Maybe some solutions like that. I don't claim to know the answers, but it is heartbreaking when our economy doesn't support the home prices.
And I'd say the home prices are market driven. We don't control
They are,
that.
yeah.
And I would encourage you to write down your ideas and submit them to our legislators. They're the ones in charge of that. To do any of those things that you've talked about is legislature. We work within what they give us.
Yeah.
Assessors are required to assess homes based on market value. there's a little bit of wiggle room there, but not much. And so that's what our assessor does, and we have to work with those values. And one of the things that he pointed out to us in a meeting earlier today, wasn't it? I think it was, is that the balance of commercial to residential is shifted to residential to where now I think he told is 70% of the value within Canyon County that gets taxed to pay for property tax services is residential. And that's shifted over the years from what it used to be, and that's one of the factors that is really not in our control. Yeah.
And I know that, so I'm just saying maybe, and I know the laws, they don't come from you.
Yeah.
But something has to happen or we're going to have.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, one more question, I think, and I don't want to put Zach on the spot, but if you have or know what the cumulative total is for the step increase for all departments and elected officials, do you know what that number is?
Step increase?
Yes, and that was the question that JJ referenced earlier, and it's in the budget documentation that there are increases in salaries for all positions in the county.
For which fiscal year? What?
For the requested 2021 budget.
For the requested 2021 budget? We're still in the process, still working on developing the 2021 budget.
Yes, and in what we've seen is, help me if I didn't see that correctly, but there's increases on the compensation program included in the requested budget, not on the equity, but on the compensation portion. So
There's nothing included for that at the moment. There's been some requests for new positions, additional positions, and there's been some requests for certain positions to be updated. But there's nothing in the great county-wide across the board type increase in compensation.
So I'm looking, and I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. If I look at a line item for a regular employee and the 2020 amended budget, and there's an increase on the 2021 requested budget, so help me with that.
So that's reflective of what was approved for fiscal year 2020.
Correct.
2020 compensation plan.
For 2020 amended, correct, and then 2020 requested shows what they've asked for as an increase.
The 2021 requested, that's representative of current salaries of the current employees.
And I'm sorry, that doesn't make sense to me. We'll have to come back to that.
No step.
Okay, and where there's an increase, I'll have to get more information from you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Any other questions?
Not at this time.
Okay.
So if I could add right in there though, while we're on that, with the compensation plan.
You have, Clerk Yamamoto, will you come up to the microphone? Thank you.
As this goes on, the longer it goes on, attrition starts to work. For instance, yes, with the STEP program, there will be people, for instance, at the 5-year mark that get an increase in salary. But with those people that are leaving and with those replacements, they come in at a lower salary. So it starts evening out as we go through the years and attrition starts.
Larry. Mr. Stevenson, I'm sorry.
You can call me Larry.
Try not to trip here.
Thank you. Yes, please don't trip.
Who shall I give the assessor's copy to? Gentlemen?
What? No?
Assessor's got a copy of it.
I can take it and.
Oh, you can take it for Brian.
Thank you, Monica.
My name is Larry Stevenson. I've been a resident of Canyon County for my last birthday, 71 years. So anyway, We're here today to kind of discuss, and I'm sorry with the work I prepared, I can't do this in 5 minutes, but I'll try to speed it up.
Okay, okay.
I don't want to give you the summary and then take the book and you know the endings, you guys go back and read it. So anyway, I don't have really any general comments today about the overall budget. My work has been focused strictly on the assessor's budget. So I'm going to try to introduce some things today here. We might look at some areas to cut the assessor's budget to save the taxpayers money. So let's get started. I would like to thank the commissioners today to be able to raise some serious questions about Brian Stender's 2021 budget. We're not always allowed enough time to question the elected officials, the way it is. So I selected what I consider the high points of inaccuracy in the proposed budget. Let me start by offering, excuse me for reading, I get sidetracked, so I got prepared comments and exhibit. Let me start by offering this exhibit, which is basically entitled The Assessor's Reappraisal Budget Cash Basis. I have only selected 5 line items as reported by Stender. Line 1 in my exhibit illustrates operating revenue. Line 2, total salaries and benefits. Line 3, professional litigation expenses. Line 4, miscellaneous professional services, excuse me. And line 5 on my exhibit again, these are lines on my exhibit, total expenses, the assessor's budget. My research shows some large discrepancies of understating operating revenues and possibly overstating expenses. Looking at line 1, operating revenues 2018 reported $25K or $25,000. 2019 it went to $40,000. Then in 2020 it went to a whopping $125,000. or a 212% increase in 1 year. Footnotes A, B, and C on my exhibit help explain why operating revenues increased dramatically. In reviewing the minutes from the IAC Litigation Committee, which Stender and Taylor represent 33% of the voting membership on that committee, I learned this 6-member committee reviews all 44 county applications for reimbursement funding for out-of-pocket litigation costs paid by county public funds. Line 2, on this exhibit, column E, actual operating expenses reported as $40,000, which is shown in footnote A, should be $65,000. Based on reimbursements paid to the assessor for 2019. Then as reported in 2020 actual, column G went to $125,000, which matched my research. Footnote B. The big question becomes, why is column H, 2020 actual amended, dropped to $25,000? What happened to $100,000 reimbursement to our assessor? The puzzling thing here is, why is our assessor, column J, only budgeting $25,000 for 2020 year when 2020 actual was $125,000? In the proposed 2021 budget, column M, again, $25,000 is reported when column N, footnote C, should be $75,000. Should be the reported amount. If the assessor is understating revenues on this line item, then total expenses below are not being used properly, thus inflating his budget number. Moving on to line 2, total salaries and benefits 2018 to 2019 went up 5%. Seems reasonable. Why, from 2019 to 2020, did this line item go down 25%? Did we have pay cuts or layoffs? I don't think so. If you look at column H, 2020 actual amended salaries are $1.956 million. Then in 2021 budget is reported to be $2.87 million, or a 47% increase. Something's not adding up here. Moving on to line 3, professional litigation expenses. 2018 to 2019 went up 10%. Seems reasonable. What happened in 2020 when this line item went to $212,000, over $74,000 in 2019? This is a 211% increase in this line item. What happened column G to H when this went from $212,000 to $230,000? What was the budgeted, which was the budgeted amount? Seems strange that actual would come in at exactly what was budgeted. The proposed 2021 budget is $245K. Guess we'll have to wait and see if that actually comes in exactly as budgeted. Moving on to line 4, miscellaneous professional services. Since these reported figures are unaudited, we hope they do not include any litigation costs. 2018 actual to 2019 went up 109%. 52,000 to 109,000. Why such a large change? The 2020 actual is being reported as $64 for this line item. That can't be right. What is going on here? Strangely, the 2022 actual amended column H is reporting this amount as $70,000, which is exactly what was budgeted for 2020. Now, for the proposed 2021 budget, Stender is requesting $145,000, or a 107% increase. Again, the question, why so much? Moving on to line 5, total expenses. 2018 to 2019 went up 7.5%. Seems reasonable. Then 2019 to 2020 went up $0.536 million, or an 18% increase. Why such a large jump in total budget? The 2021 budget is $3.559 million. Over 2020, $3.558 million seems reasonable. But why not so much over the 2019 budget? That's where the 18% thing is. I think the assessor's office is understating, reimbursement operating revenues from IAC to help compensate for his large litigation expenses that he spent in 2020, which will continue on into 2021. Our assessor's aggressive litigation with our Canyon County commercial taxpayers is getting very expensive, especially if IAC does not give us complete reimbursement, which they have not. See footnotes A, B, and C. That shows requested and approved. As you can see from the bottom of my footnote C, from 2019 to 2021, over the last 3 years, IAC has reimbursed our assessor for a total of $240,000, while Stender has reported $190,000 in the budget numbers for operating revenue. What happened to the $50,000 shortfall here? Footnote D proposes if the commissioners could cut back this out-of-control spending for professional litigation expenses of $245,000, professional services of $145,000, and denied IAC reimbursement over $100,000, we could see reductions of the total assessor's budget by 14%. In summary, You are our trusted stewards of how our taxpayer dollars are spent. What is the financial gain in additional commercial property taxes compared to what you are spending for ongoing litigation? Why the taxpayers are asking the question, why we, the taxpayers, are asking the question, why not do what Ada County does and perform this time-consuming and costly litigation in-house and not outsource it? All these funds to outside attorneys and expert witnesses. Some of our current pending cases, we are using a New York attorney. We are proposing that Brian Taylor, our prosecuting attorney, step up and help reduce this outsourcing of county funds to defend the assessor's office in-house. Stender, in his 2021 budget, wants to allocate $245,000 a year for more outsourcing for outside counsel and expert witnesses. Both Taylor, with his capable in-house civil attorneys, and Stender, with his capable in-house expert appraisers, could save the county funding from more future inflationary litigation costs. The taxpayers of Canyon County respectfully request that the commissioners consider adopting a proactive resolution to start reducing these out-of-control litigation costs of our assessor, who is trying to obtain, understandably, district and Supreme Court precedents or an estimated valuation. It is not fair for just that our assessor gets litigation reimbursement funding from IAC, while our county taxpayers spend hundreds of thousands of dollars out of pocket for their legal costs and then turn around and pay with their property tax dollars the IAC annual county membership fees, which is around $30,000 annually. A good immediate step in the right direction for reduction of unnecessary litigation, our commissioners should encourage Stender and Taylor to resign their positions from the IAC litigation committee, which would avoid a major conflict of interest and some obvious ability to exert influence on the IAC committee to approve Canyon County assessor reimbursement request, $240,000 over the last 3 years. I am also shocked that the controller within the clerk's office has presented such flawed accounting of assessor account balances. A normal budget process does not propose double and triple percentage balance fluctuation from year to year. Maybe it's time for taxpayers to call for independent audits, starting with the assessor costs. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you, Larry. Do you have any questions?
Can I make a comment? Sure. So, in support here, a financial sheet, balance sheet, Larry, would have highlighted this for you, where what you're seeing, when they have it under categories of other expenses, and when it's not broken down, but a standard financial sheet, standard balance sheet, you would have seen these things, because then it would have had to be broken out. And then you could have compared it to 2019, 2018, 2017. And Larry's a CPA or auditor or...
None of the above.
Well, it's been 2 years on this.
I'm an accountant.
And that's general accounting practices in order to do that. And not having that, having it in this kind of format or not being able to do a comparable like that, you can't see those items like that. You know, and it's hard. It's hard. You can't see it.
Thank you, JJ.
So I'm looking at your faces and I see that you guys are like shocked right now, and there's no way you could have seen anything like that.
I'm not shocked.
Well,
I hope that's not what's on my face.
Let's see, everybody that's in here. LJ, did you want to have some discussion?
Yes, please.
Sure. You're on.
Do you have a copy of the questions I submitted via email for the commission?
Yes.
Second, I don't have it with me.
It's been up considered.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Van Beek.
Okay.
Commissioner Van Beek is going to get them printed off. Well, Monica's doing it for us.
Yeah.
Okay. So just, before they come back in, I'd just like to say that it's a very difficult process to come up with a budget format that's transparent. And having done that for 20 years for the city of Caldwell, I don't know that mine really got completely transparent, but it's just a difficult task to do. But I will say that the 16-page budget and brief document that was prepared this last year is a good start. And even though there may be some objections to how it looks, I believe it's a document that could provide commissioners and the public with an ease of discussion document where you could talk about what's really gone on in the budget and why the budget is in its best format. So with that in mind, I'd like to compliment the clerk for putting that out and recognize that there will probably be changes to it, but it does represent a document that could really be a benefit to the public and to the, as you look at the budget in brief.
We have your questions now.
Okay, so that was the first on the list. I've knocked some of these off, so I won't address them. But number 2, the question: how does the 2021 proposed budget, and I probably should have said requested because that's what it's called, address the legislators' and taxpayers' efforts to provide property tax relief? The reason I ask this question, and maybe you can't answer it now, but the reason I ask it is that I was very concerned about the format of that bill that was presented last year that basically said they were going to freeze property taxes, because that would be very detrimental to the county. You have to have new construction at least to operate. So is there any effort on the county's part to help legislators understand what property tax relief could look like from the county's perspective?
I can answer that if you want, LJ. Chris, come on up. You can answer it probably better than I can. I would just say that IAC is working on this, and we're giving input into the committee at every opportunity.
Right. And last legislative session, several of us spent many days at the Capitol. We offered our services outside of the committee meetings as well. Very few of our elected legislators took us up on that offer. I also offered services. When they were forming the committees that were supposed to start this summer but got kind of delayed because of COVID, I said, you really need to include some county folks, whether it be clerk, treasurer, assessor, preferably all 3, be part of that committee so that we could be talking about the complications and nuances of property tax and what could be done, what they did at the state level, how would that impact things downstream, whether it be the county, city, or whatever taxing entity. So they've decided not to do that, so they are meeting. I think they've had 1 meeting. Yeah, I think that's right. We don't know where they're going to end up. There's a bunch of things being bounced around out there, probably too many for me to even talk about here because it hasn't been boiled out yet. So right now, though, what we're spending most of our time doing, and we have one person that's pretty well dedicated to this, is to figure out what the governor's going to do with the CARES Act money as part of property tax relief. And that has been, to say the least, a hot potato. So we still don't know where that's going to end up. I think we will know very soon. If they follow what they said they were going to, we'll have those numbers very quickly. I do have great concern in that the number they threw out early on as far as the amount of money, 200 million, and if you do some quick math over the counties and cities, that doesn't go very far. And while they were talking about 200 million, they were throwing out the number of 20% tax relief, property tax relief. That's simply not going to happen. It's not even close. So we've created a PR nightmare right from the get-go. So, but again, we're running through our normal budget procedures, and then we'll see what the state's going to do, and we'll go from there.
Oh, you're pretty
Yamamoto, I have a question. Oh, sorry, LJ.
Oh,
You're kind of breaking up, LJ.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Yeah, you keep breaking up, though.
Yeah, that's just me. I'm just a breakup kind of guy.
Oh, yeah.
So are we pretty confident that the governor's office will get the information back to the county before you have to pass your budget?
That is what we're told.
Okay.
So if
All
there's
right.
a question I have, LJ, while you're on there too, is there the possibility, because I saw that 20%, and that even in one article it had a 20% to as much as a 34% or something like that. Is there the possibility that that they've picked various locations, size of counties or communities in the state where they will indeed realize that size? No?
No.
It's not even a possibility?
No.
Okay, interesting.
And we could have a total hour-long conversation or more about this. But again, with the 70-30 split as to who's paying the taxes, commercial properties are going to get more of a tax break than the homeowner.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, that's probably enough time on that, huh? So I'm skipping questions 4 and 5. Number 6, what amount of property tax incentives granted to businesses in previous years will expire and be added to the 2021 budget? So if you don't have an answer now, that's okay, but that's one of those that didn't come back in the response that I had, as I remember. And you understand what I'm asking, right?
Is this the incentive, or not the incentive, but you know what I mean, that
Economic development.
Economic development?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that what you're
where
referring
they get a 50% tax reduction for 5 years, and then after 5 years, they got to pay the full amount of taxes.
Right, okay.
So
That
is that number going to be available for commissioners to consider how to use it?
Madam Chair, related to that number, if that property is within an urban renewal agency, that's increment value, that's not available to the county for property tax purposes. I'm not exactly sure on the specifics of properties, but if it's in an urban renewal area, that's going to be increment value.
Some of them were, some of them in the Sky Ranch were in the urban renewal area.
or like Marketplace or anything?
Correct.
Okay,
That's true, that one too.
interesting, yeah, that one would be too.
I don't know that we.
So my question
I don't know
is,
that we applied any incentives to Marketplace, though. I don't think. I don't think we did.
Go ahead, LJ.
well, my question is, will that information be available to commissioners so you'll know that if it's expired, where it's going, if it's available to the county, or if it's not going to be available until sunset of urban renewal? Will that information be provided during this budget process?
Zach is standing here and he shook his head yes.
Thank you. On the 16-page budget in brief, this is part of my question number 7, because that shows the new revenue and the new expenses on that budget in brief, and I really appreciated seeing that. So my question is, what are the new revenues and the new expenses as we look at trying to keep a balanced budget? You know, expenses shouldn't exceed revenues. When will those new revenues and new expenses be permitted or be presented to the commissioners?
Madam Chair, we are very closely watching information from the state relating to sales tax revenues. We're anxiously awaiting June's report, June's numbers for sales tax revenue. That's a big part, that's an important part of the county budget. So those numbers are still being reviewed, analyzed, developed, and prepared. Clerk's suggested budget is scheduled to be presented Monday, this coming Monday.
Will we have those numbers by then?
We'll have the numbers by then. We'll have a couple weeks until a tentative budget is published, so we'll continue to monitor and evaluate those significant revenue sources.
That answered my question. Thank you. Okay, my next question, I'm going down to number 14, and it's based on the 2020 budget allocation of $500,000 for the Capital Construction Fund as requested by Commissioner White. Did I cut out on that, or did everybody hear me?
No, we heard you.
Okay, all right. So I understand that that $500,000 was funded by sales tax and property tax in the 2020 budget. And my question was, is there a way that we can increase that number so that the commissioners have more opportunity to create capital funding for future projects? The reason I ask that is in the budget, we have ongoing revenues for salaries and benefits, for operating supplies, repair and maintenance at certain levels. But in my experience as a finance director for Caldwell, there's probably need for more allocation towards capital replacement than is currently in the county budget. So as I look at that, I'm asking if there's a way to increase that $500,000 annually to a larger number. Is that being considered?
That's a good question, LJ. I remember the budget hearing last year when we had this discussion, and that was one of the things I think I put the question to you, Zach, this way. Can you commit to $500,000 a year going into this? Is that a number that you will commit to on a yearly basis going in? Is that how I asked you?
Yes, that is how you asked me.
Okay, and you told me?
I told you we could.
Okay, now I think, LJ, you're wondering, you want it higher than $500,000? Is that what your question is?
Yes, I'm suggesting for the commissioners to consider what the funding level they really need to address concerns with capital replacement in the county, and what that really should be. And so that's the reason for the question. I think it could be higher.
Comment.
And
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We are operating in and living in a little different world today than we were 12 months ago. And I think it's appropriate as we develop the 2021 budget, we very carefully evaluate needs and the burden that will be placed on property taxpayers.
Thank you. Thank you.
If I may.
Sure.
I will just add to that. The clerk's suggested budget will do, my aim will be to keep the property taxes as low as possible. So you will not see an increase in a capital line in my suggestion.
But Chris, you're going to support that commitment to the 500,000, you're just not exceeding that, is that what you're saying?
Well, we're not done. In fact, we're going to spend some hours trying to crank through this to have this done by the time. But, so I'm not going to commit to anything. But, yeah, I think we can do the $500,000, but I can guarantee you there's not going to be more than that.
Zach.
Madam Chair, what we're talking about is the 2020 budget. The budget is two sides of a coin. Our budget is also a projection of revenue that will hopefully be received. We haven't received those most recent sales tax numbers. So the funding source was sales tax and property tax. If the cash isn't produced through sales tax, the cash isn't there. The budget also includes projections on revenue. We're hopeful that those numbers are realized and received, but it's still a projection. It's still an estimate. And we're still in the process of fiscal year 2020.
So, and if I could to add that, and I've said this before in front of this board, you know how a retail business do their inventory is they usually have a first in, first out, right? You understand? Because they have a cost and that, and if it goes up or if it goes down, they want to keep that as close together. So we have that same kind of policy basically in the county with our revenues. And the first in is what I would call all of our non-property tax revenues. That's the first thing we spend. And the reason for that is to try to if there's anything left over, it's on the property tax side. Try to keep those down. So if that happens, you have fund balance, and which can increase, and sometimes that gets spent on something, and sometimes that just increases fund balance. We had 2 years in a row where the fund balance was in such good shape that we actually didn't take any the taxes that we could have. We'll have $5 million in Canyon County property taxpayers' pocket.
Madam Chair, maybe.
Questions for you?
Yeah, Chris or Zach, you could address the question of and that's really tied to the CARES program, but disclaiming foregone if we don't take, what's your position on that? We don't take, right, if we don't take the 3% this year, what's your position on that?
3%.
So you're going to disclaim the foregone that we go for this year then?
Pardon me?
You'll disclaim the foregone that could have.
I don't see any reason to do that.
Okay, and that's my question. So not taking the 3%, but you're not going to disclaim the foregone.
Well, then the foregone is in case you got a need in the future. You don't want to tie future's hands.
I'm just asking the question.
Yeah. You see a reason to do that?
The only reason foregone is even available is because you didn't take it in the first place. So there's a savings there by not taking it, and that savings is permanent. You can't go back and change the property tax levy for prior years. The only reason you even have the option is because you left money in the taxpayers' pockets.
Okay. And that, I think that is one of the things I remember listening a couple of years ago to a Napa City Council debate with city council members there, and this issue of foregone came up, and it was very clear that some of them did not understand it because they were using language that okay, we left 6% on the table over the last 3 years. We're going to go back there and we're going to get that money back. You never get the money back. You can add that percentage moving forward, but you can never go back. And I think I recall, and I don't know what it is in our budget, but it seems to me that in Annapolis City, I think it's here about $1 million per percentage or per 3% or what is it, $1 million per 1%. If you took 2% instead of 3%, you're leaving $1 million in the pockets. Is it roughly equivalent to that for our budget?
Roughly $500,000.
Okay, so that $500,000 never gets recaptured by the county. It always stays with the property taxpayers. And that was the misunderstanding that people thought they'd go back and, oh, we left $500,000, we're going to get that back. No, it doesn't work that way.
Another way to look at it, there's no old money, there's only
Right.
new money.
Right, yeah.
LJ, I'm sorry that you're not forgotten. You have more questions here?
Okay, I'd like to suggest a couple more things. That this new construction that we're seeing, this economic boom in Canyon County, I've never seen anything like it in the 20 years with the city. And so as that comes, I think it's obvious we're going to see an increase in new construction revenue. I would strongly suggest that the commissioners consider using a percentage of that every year to add to their capital construction fund, because, yeah, I think it's just underfunded. And as you look to the future, if you start now, little baby steps will be a big help in the future. And then I have one other, question number 15 is the last one I want to talk about today. Some of these questions haven't been answered yet, but I'll just readdress them. I asked the question, how does the 2021 budget address jail overcrowding and new jail facilities? And since that time, I've looked through the budget and I have a question about the jail lease. My question is, the jail lease started in 2018 in current expense, and I notice now that it's in the sheriff's budgets. And I thought that construction of buildings and payment of buildings was a commissioner responsibility, and the operation of a building was the sheriff. And so I'm concerned that if that money is not transferred back to the current expense fund with the revenues and the expenditure that's needed, that money will be absorbed into the sheriff's budget and it will not be used for its intended purpose. And as I recall, the intended purpose of raising taxes $2.25 million several years ago, I think it was in 2018, was to address jail overcrowding on the commissioner side and add beds. And so I really believe the commissioner should move that back, request that the clerk move that amount of property tax and the expense back into the current expense budget so that when it's paid off, you'll still have that revenue to move forward and add more beds in the future. That's it for my questions.
Thanks, LJ.
You're sure welcome.
Any other questions or comments for LJ?
Well, I guess just, is there a clarification from the clerk or auditor side on where that was at in 2018 as opposed to, we did go through that and that was identified in the sheriff's budget. Do you have anything on that, Jeff?
Well, currently the lease payment is included in the justice fund. County has established a justice fund.
Right.
And the major activity in the justice fund are sheriff's office responsibilities. And because that housing prisoners is a sheriff's function, sheriff's responsibility, we've included that expenditure in a portion of the sheriff's budget in the justice fund.
And then statutorily where the buildings are, and I understand what you're saying and I appreciate that, but the statute that is in there that the commissioners control the building portion, the sheriff controls the housing portion, what would that look like for you if that were put back? I guess what LJ is saying is that was in the 2018 under the commissioner's current expense. So
the county is going to be paying the same dollar amount, whether it comes from the justice fund or the current expense fund, payment still is going to be made. We could certainly discuss transferring it to a different fund, but we're still going to have to make the same payment.
Well, yeah, we were lucky. We had the luxury of being able to move that into the justice fund And the reason is we try to do everything we can to keep the current expense unencumbered as much as possible. Because that's basically the only fund we have where we have any kind of leeway. So that's the reason it's there. That's a good reason.
Makes sense. And to LJ's point that you said, LJ, about a concern that perhaps it could be used for something other than what it was intended, that I don't think that's much of a likelihood.
We cut the checks.
We cut the checks, as Chris has said, and we designate where dollars go within elected officials' budgets. And if those dollars don't go there, there are remedies for that. So.
I'm trying to think, LJ.
He has another comment, LJ?
Yeah, so what I saw in the 2021 requested budget is that the payment has now dropped down to about $1.5 million. And so what was originally requested for jail overcrowding of $2.25 million, part of that has already been absorbed into the Justice Fund. It has not been transferred back to the current expense fund. So in order to eliminate any problems in the future with what this could do, I would recommend that you transfer all that back to the current expense fund, and you're going to have that $700,000 that is not necessary for the lease payment now to go into your capital construction fund.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. JJ,
Yes, ma'am.
is there more, or do you have more questions or discussion?
Yeah, one question I do have is, Zach brought up a really good point on where the revenue streams mean, the constraint on the revenue stream. And in light of that, where would the planning come from as far as technology being implemented and processes being implemented to streamline costs and cost controls within the government to eliminate waste? Where can the public find these things? We can see where the,
You mean like,
and understand, I come from the private sector, and there's cost controls and processes everywhere.
do you mean like savings, like cost savings where we had budget, our facilities department is very, very good at this. In other words, they'll have a project budgeted for $3 million and it will come in at $1.3 million. Is that what you're referring to?
Like that you can put on the website for the Canyon County for PR, that shows what the county is doing for the taxpayers. And
that's a good idea. In fact, I would say we have two departments that are incredibly outstanding in that measure. And one of them is facilities and one of them is IT. That have, by implementation of policies, particularly on the technology side, our IT director has saved the county lots and lots of money on contracts and equipment and increase the service at the same time. So yeah, those are good stories.
Yeah, that and the other thing that I was thinking of when Zach was talking, processes where not necessarily eliminating headcount, but you're improving processes and make government more efficient for everyone.
Yeah.
And especially in this time of COVID.
Well, our like for instance, the PA's office, they do the prosecutorial work for the communities, for their Nampas and Caldwells, and I don't know if they do all of them, but all of the county, and that's revenue, so that is very, very good. The sheriff's office, we just talked about this. They do training sessions and different things where they can bring in all the other agencies around, and that and do things locally. That is major savings. That's just stuff that is in the day-to-day, but it would be good online to show people that we're aware that it is the people's money.
And I do apologize, because sometimes we look at government and it's adversarial. We need to build that community, that trust, and we're not going to do it unless we humanize it and we get these stories out, right?
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
We can always do better.
Well, we can too.
And I think one of the things that would be good, we had a very good example of it that came out of the recorder's office today. So it's meeting performance metrics and standards.
Yeah.
So they had a target goal of recording so many documents, and they're setting their benchmark higher, and their revenues are showing that. So I think there's room for county improvement on those evaluating performance, and because it keeps people sharp and competitive. I think that's a good suggestion.
The clerk's organization does that every year.
It is a goal, and it continues on, and I've seen tremendous advances in the 6 years I've been here.
I can give you a prime example. We ran a test for 2 weeks. We had one individual that was performing about 40% of the rest of the office. They're gone.
I see the treasurer, Canyon County Treasurer, Tracy Lloyd. I see you on there. Do you have something you'd like to add today? Please.
What would you like me to say? I apologize. I had a legislative meeting, so I didn't get on this call until very late. So I don't even know what has been said, but I think we have. I think that's what we all strive for, is to be more efficient and look for innovative ways to save taxpayer money. I know that the elected officials, we all are very conscious of this is taxpayer money. So I don't really know what more to add there, but
that was very good. Thank you, Tracy, very much.
There's a Robert Turner out there too.
Robert Turner? Oh, Robert Turner, yes. Do you have something, a question or something a comment on the budgeting?
Well, thank you. It's been quite interesting to listen and to try to figure out who the different voices are. A few of them, I recognize all of the commissioners and a few other people that are in the room. But one couple comments that I would have to probably go to some of the comments that LJ made and JJ even made, but I don't know who said it, but it had to do with the funds that were transferred. You were talking about transferring the funds to the Judicial Department and transferring those funds back and having the funds. The Justice, okay.
Justice Fund.
And one of the concerns that I always have is having lots of grandchildren and lots of children myself. If I give them a little bit of money, they burn a hole in their pocket and they find a way to spend that money. And they don't realize that we have, in a week from now, planned to go to Disneyland, and they might want to spend that money at Disneyland. And then when we do get to Disneyland, they'll say, I want some more money to spend it. And we are very blessed here in Canyon County. We're in an area that people are wanting to move to. It's a beautiful area. We've got a lot of growth going on here, and there's a lot of revenue passing through the city of Nampa and through the county, Canyon County. And I do know, someone made a comment a couple years ago when I lived in the state of California. I was in an area 30 years ago that went through a tremendous boom. And that boom caused property taxes to rise terribly. And then when the market went soft and then we went into a recession, those taxes remained. And it created a terrible problem for the community. And then we recovered from that, and 10 years later, another boom in a different community same thing happened. And this is actually, in my lifetime, this is the fourth area that I've lived in that we're going through a real estate boom. And throwing aside COVID and the challenges that we as a country and as a community have gone through with COVID, throwing that out, we've been weathering an economic boom. But are we foreseeing that in a couple years from now, when that slows down and we fill in, that we're going to have a reduction in growth and possibly even recessive type activities in our county? Are we prepared at that point in time to provide relief to taxpayers that now have highly inflated properties that with expenses? And I always get worried when I don't know who was it, and I'm not criticizing it, but that fund, it was called we have leeway with that fund. Well, those funds shouldn't be a leeway fund. They need to be allocated, and if they become a savings, then those can roll over from year to year in your budget, and then they can eventually be, through commissioners' vote, they can reallocate those savings to other projects, whether it be capital deferred expenses, to capital purchases, to building funds, to community improvement funds. But having those funds on hand and a very fiscally minded budget, to me, is essential. Because I work at a very large company, and all they talk about is cost savings, and they base upon that upon what the cost revenues are going to be. And LJ nailed it right on the head when he said that these costs are going up, but you can't predict necessarily the revenue that's coming in. And I don't really have a question for you. I do appreciate you commissioners. It's a very difficult position that you have, and the the county employees, it's difficult to balance that. And someone said that they did a performance review on somebody in 2 weeks, and they only performed at 40%. Well, I go through a performance review every quarter at my company. And if I'm not performing where I need to be, I could lose my job. And I think that we need to look at the county business with those fiscal responsibilities. I believe that you're doing, I think we're on the right track. But I think if we could see a crystal ball 5 years from now, where our county is going to be, are we setting a good foundation right now with these fiscal principles that is going to allow us to be where we want to be in 5 years now? So thank you, and thanks for the time, for the opportunity to at least put my voice out there. So
thank you for sharing very much. Commissioner Dale?
Yeah, and Robert, thank you. I appreciate those words. And what you described fundamentally about 2 minutes ago or so is exactly what we do, and it's called fund balance. We do not encourage or even allow a budget that's got excess money at the end of the budget year just to go out and try to find some place to spend it. And our elected officials are very cognizant of this and very careful with their money. And our department heads that are under the Board of County Commissioners are also very judicious with their spending. And most of the time we look forward to having money left over that goes into fund balance, which is basically a savings account. And that money then is available to be allocated for emergency situations. Maybe a roof fails and we need to have $1 million to put a new roof on a building. That money's there for that kind of stuff, and that's what we call fund balance. So I really appreciate your comments, and just want to let you know that we're trying our best to follow those safe and secure and tried and true financial principles.
Thank you.
Can I make one more comment? Can I make one more comment, Pam?
Yes.
I don't know if any of you commissioners or county members have ever tried to go onto the county's website and try to look up properties and different things on the properties. I've been in the county for 7 years now, and I really haven't seen that updated at all. and you said that your IT department is very, very efficient. It would be nice when you compare Canyon's site for looking at properties, looking at property lots and things like that. It's very, very, I'm going to say antiquated when you compare it to Kootenai or compare it to Ada County. Of what JJ mentioned about maybe dated web principle where you are actually sharing things that the county is doing and stories about the efforts that the county is involved in. It would make it user-friendly for us as a public that are interested in knowing what our county leadership is doing, elected and employed employees for the county, what they're doing, because it makes us a part of the community when we know what's going on in all aspects. It's more transparent. And so that's just a feedback with regards to when you go on certain things are really good, but there's some other things that are very, very antiquated and probably the IT department could probably do some improvement there.
Good to know. Thank you.
I didn't quite understand what you meant by looking up a property. Are you looking up on a map to look at a property, or what do you mean there?
Yeah, if you let's say I wanted to I'm wanting to purchase a property, and I see a property that might be for sale, and it's in the county. I can put in the address, and I can pull up a map on the county site. I think it's on the assessor's portion of it. But then it spirals a lot. It just doesn't really give you details. You can sometimes find the owner of it without going to a realtor, or to find out who your neighbor is. You see something on their property. It's just not very friendly. It just doesn't work very often.
Okay.
And
I think that cleared it up for me. I just wasn't sure what you were meaning there. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Anything to add from Claudia? No. Zach, Chris, anything to add? Thank you, all you that joined us on WebEx and on the telephone, and those of you in the room as well. Thank you very much. That will conclude this meeting. Thank you, Monica.